be changed. That's the rapture. So the physical death, we don't have to fear that. And then obviously spiritual death, we've been made alive. We've been quickened, Ephesians tells us. We've been quickened. We've been made alive. We have salvation right now. We've been saved by the blood of Christ. And then also, obviously, as far as eternal death, we've been saved. We've been saved eternally. And Christ has set us free. So for the child of God, nothing to fear as far as death is concerned. As we move on into verse 13, we read, "For until the law, sin was in the world, but sin is not imputed when there is no law." So even before the law, sin was in the world through Adam's sin. Adam sinned before the law was given. Before Moses received the 10 Commandments, Adam already broke them. He disobeyed God. He disobeyed the Lord. So he had already sinned. So before the law was given, mankind was doing a great job of sinning. By nature we sin. And what Paul is saying here is sin existed in the world. Before the law was given, man was already sinning. He was breaking all the laws. Disobeying God as his father did. Nevertheless, verse 14, death reigned from Adam to Moses, even over those that had not sinned after the similitude of Adam's transgression, who is the figure of him that was to come. So even though they didn't sin after the same manner, they didn't disobey God in the garden, yet they continued to sin. They were living in sin, guilty of sin, and because of that, they were all dying before the law was given, before the law was issued. They didn't die for breaking the law because, as is stated here, the law wasn't given. They died because they sinned. Now, there's some that say, well, children, they're perfectly righteous until, I know you're shaking your head, you're right. you agree, you know, they're perfectly righteous until they sin. No, they're born sinners, as the Bible declares. And if that were so, then no children would die. No children would die in the infant state. We wouldn't have sudden infant death syndrome. We wouldn't have children dying for various reasons. But we're all, because we have the sinful nature, it's passed on, and unfortunately, there are children that die as a result. Well, you think about some mothers that are addicted to crack or alcoholics or maybe have a disease, unfortunately, and their children are adversely affected. They're born with a malady, a defect, or maybe a disease because of their connection with mom or dad. You know, all of us have personality traits from our parents. You know, color of your hair, color of your eyes, shape of your nose, you know. And we receive from Adam those traits. We've got death from him, the sinful nature. And those who sinned before the law, they were dying because of that, because they were sinners, even though they had not sinned in the same way that Adam did, who is the figure of him that was to come. So Adam is a type of Christ, in that Adam was the first man, and then Jesus Christ is spoken of. He's the federal head, the only other federal head for all of humanity, and he is the last Adam. There's no one else after him. He's not the second Adam, he's the last Adam. Now, he's not Adam, but he's the federal head, so he's spoken of as being the last Adam. So you got one of the two. You can either say, okay, I'm gonna hang with Adam. I'm gonna be in the Addams family. Cousin It, Uncle Fester, Gomez. Remember those guys? Right. Everyone in that family they're lost. They're weird, just like the sitcom, right? And it's just, that's the Addams family. Adam, his family, it's just is unregenerated man. And he goes from Adam and he gets worse. He doesn't evolve. He doesn't become a god. And that was the lie in the garden, right? You shall become gods. Just the opposite became true. So mankind has a choice. to move out of the family of Adam and into the family of Christ. And that's the only two categories, the only two families, the family of man, Adam, and the family of Christ, two representatives. Now, generally speaking, as far as our society is concerned, as far as the world is concerned, actually, the people want another choice. They want something different, something else, an alternative, but there is none. And to be in Adam is to be lost. To be in Christ is to be saved. And just as Adam, one man, affected everyone, so too in Christ, everyone is affected in a greater way, in an abounding, to a far greater extent. If you receive Christ, you see that life of Christ abounds. The salvation that you have in Christ, the life of God himself, is yours. Verse 15, but not as the offense, so also is the free gift. For if through the offense of one many be dead, much more the grace of God and the gift by grace, which is by one man, Jesus Christ, hath abounded unto many. See the comparison there? There's a glorious contrast. What Adam did affected everyone, but what Christ has done is far greater. And we see in this passage, the 5th chapter of Romans, 5 times Paul says much more. It speaks of the fact that what Christ did has a far greater effect in your life. See, what Adam did was one-dimensional. The power of sin. Only thing Adam can give you is death, his nature, that fallen nature. But what Christ gives you is much more. What you have in Christ is far greater. The power of sin, which is death, can only be broken by Christ. That link can only be broken by Christ. That link from Adam to death to condemnation can only be broken through the blood of Christ himself. That is the only means of life to nullify the effects of Adam's sin. And what's so wonderful is that the power of Christ, which brings salvation, cannot be broken by anything.